I really want to try it because, I mean, it's all over my Instagram because I follow him on Instagram. And so
So I
I'm just
tried it
curious.
before I left, and
Uh-huh.
like it was actually like really good. Like the flavor was like pretty good. Like, it was fine. Like tastes better than like Red Bull or Monster or anything. But
Okay,
like
gotcha.
probably the first time I've taken like a nootropic, right? It's supposed
Uh-huh.
to be like a nootropic drink, productivity drink that actually like I felt like really worked. Like I've had Alpha Brain before, but my issue
Hmm.
with it was that like after like taking it on the second day, I felt like it didn't do anything. It was only like the first day.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha.
and so with this, like I had, a few in a week, like maybe four or something. And like, it's not as good as like taking like Adderall or something. But for
Sure.
like over the counter, I was like, okay, this is like pretty solid.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I really wanted to try it. The Alpha Brain that I get, they have it's called a Fresh Time Market by the Orange Theory that I'm at,
Okay.
and they have an awesome supplement couple of aisles where some of it is like protein powders and that sort of thing. But then on the other side, you've got all these different sort of mushrooms and greens powders. It's very holistic
Mm.
selection, which is nice. But they have these little sticks like a liquid IV or something, but Alpha Brain. And so you can just buy one
Okay.
stick. And so every once in a while, if I've got a big study session or something going on or a pod, I'll just get one and do the one. So I've never actually taken them 2 days in a row. So
Okay.
I only ever do the one that I'm kind of like, ooh, a little spicy. And this one's got a little black pepper in it, so you kind of get a little sweat going
Okay. Yeah,
on.
I've seen the ads for that on their website, but I haven't tried the like individual like packet things.
Yeah. Is the new tonic, does it have, how much caffeine is in it?
120 grams in a can.
Milligrams, yeah.
Yeah, milligrams.
Nice.
Sorry,
Yeah.
grams would be
It's
you would
dead.
die. You would die. It would be insane.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's like pretty considerable for, I mean, because you're not, the idea is you do it to do work, not necessarily work out, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like marketed as a productivity drink. That being said, you know, having done my supplement deep dive stuff,
Uh-huh.
like a lot of the ingredients are also found in other, you know, pre-workout and workout products.
Hmm.
So it's I mean they did do a good job of formulating it and the flavor is great.
Hmm.
Um, but it's all the individual products are honestly things you'll find in like pre-workouts.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
you could totally take it before working out and like, it's not going to be like C4 because,
Sure.
it just has so much more caffeine and stuff. But like,
Uh-huh.
if you took it, like, yeah, you'd probably feel, pretty good, pretty dialed in for your workout for sure.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I've been on I haven't really been buying too many supplements recently, just cutting back a little bit. And
I need to do
recently,
that. I have so many right
yeah,
now.
yeah, I'm sure you do.
It's like out of control.
Recently, I've been just making black coffee and taking that as my pre-workout, and I'll just like sip that
Mm.
at the gym. And even though it doesn't have any of the other sort of, no beta alanine, no vitamins and minerals, no nootropics, it is just straight up caffeine. And it also, I feel like what it does is because if I just drink it black and then I let it get like a little room temperature, I'm less inclined to just slam it down for
Hmm.
the caffeine high. And I think it just helps me not abuse pre-workout or caffeine because it's really easy to be like, oh, let's just get geeked and go to the
Oh
gym,
yeah,
baby.
yeah. When I first like in my first year of really working out, kind of like in college into that summer that was going into my sophomore year,
Hmm.
my I wasn't like anti supplement. I don't even remember if it was like a money thing, but I was just like I'm gonna like do this the most natural way possible, right? So I would just
Oh,
have like
sure.
black coffee and an apple before going to the gym, and like my protein shake was like is like kind of gross to think about, but it was like 16 ounces of like whole milk and just like a like a scoop of 100% like cacao, right, to make it
Oh
like chocolate.
wow.
And like
Uh-huh.
looking back, like if I were to do that now, dude, I think I'd like throw up. Like I don't think my stomach could handle that much dairy. And just like, the like 2 minutes I drank it driving out of the Planet Fitness parking lot.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, I'm actually glad you brought up the whole milk because I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I had to recertify my nutrition coach certification through NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine. And one of the questions was spoilers if anyone is taking the test, but um, what is better to have post workout or post run to help replenish electrolytes? And the correct answer, when it's like water, sports drink, some other answer, and then milk, is milk, just because it already has like natural electrolytes in it,
Yeah.
and less sugar than your typical sports drink, and so it's just able to help you absorb post run or post workout. But it's funny because I remember like Nate Perry when we were in cross country days.
Dude, I was just thinking of Sam Perry. I was like, he's the first person who'd always like drink chocolate milk
Drink
after we'd run.
chocolate
I'm
milk
like, dude,
right
what are you
after.
doing? And then it's like later on, like the research is like, yeah, research does support that, like that combination of things is really good after you work out. I was like, well, I'll be damned.
Yeah. I thought it was just like, I think you just want to drink chocolate milk, bro.
Yeah, right.
But no, that's the move. I was eavesdropping at the climbing wall at the side of Audubon Metro Park a couple years ago, and one guy was talking to his friend about, he's like, dude, how'd you put on so much weight? He's like, dude, pizza and chocolate milk, that's the hack.
The dirty bulk, baby.
Yeah, the dirty bulk. I was like, well, you'll put on some weight for sure.
I something I did like 2 years ago that like I put on like 5 pounds like pretty quick
Nice.
was like 3 times a day. I just take like a spoon, like a decent sized spoonful of like crunchy peanut butter, and I
Mm,
would just like eat it like after whatever
nice.
meal I had, and just add an extra like 400 calories.
Nice. Smart. I mean, that's definitely a great way to do that. It's weird or interesting when you're trying, like for me, if I'm training and I don't eat a meal, or I have a day or two where my calorie intake is a little bit lower, it is immediately impacted on the scale. So I know I'm just sort of
Oh,
barely,
really?
yeah, I'm just sort of barely meeting my break even point for maintaining weight, and which is annoying because I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I eat plenty
Yeah.
already. Um, so I might have to start bringing that back here because I've just recently tried to start upping my mileage a little bit, and I'm not talking anything crazy. I was maybe doing like a run or two a week, and so now I'm just trying to hit between 15 and 20 miles a week.
Hmm.
That's my new goal. I think I'm 3 weeks in, something like
So, what are you
that.
doing like four times a week, like 5 miles, something like
It varies, and so I think there's this book I've been reading or I've read called The Running Formula. It's by this guy Jack Daniels, and
that? It's kind of
yeah,
funny.
hilarious. Yeah, he's coached everything from high school to Olympian level track athletes, and then he's also done every event from the 800 to the marathon
Hmm.
with results. And so this is like the seventh edition, and he just keeps slightly tweaking things, and he'll basically write a chapter and then give you a workout if you want to do X amount of miles per week, and then this amount of miles per week, and just break it down for like 10 weeks for each sort of variation of the
Hmm.
train. It's very useful. But in the book, it talks about you don't want your longest run to be more than like 20 or 30% of your sum total miles. Um,
Hmm.
so I've been doing like a 6 or 7 mile run once, and then 3 to 4 mile runs sprinkled in there. Some of them are just super easy. Like I'll purposely set a low pace on the treadmill, or sometimes I'll do like an Orange Theory workout and have it be like my interval training for the week, or go do like a fartlek workout, that sort of thing. And so yeah, that's been kind of fun getting back into that. I feel like running is something you can notice within a week or two of a slight increase of just feeling a little bit better. Whereas like if you go to the gym for 2 weeks and you're lifting, I don't know, I mean, you'll probably feel better from like an endorphin standpoint after your workout, but 2 weeks of consistency at the gym, I feel like you're not going to feel that much stronger. You're definitely not going to look really any better.
Yeah, I've noticed when I've like started running again after stopping in the past, like 2, 3 weeks later, I instantly like just get like more definition, and like my
Yeah.
quads grow so
Yes.
much quicker than anything I could do in the gym, which always makes me wonder what I'm doing wrong in the gym. But like I just always notice I'm like, oh, if I like really want to like lean out, like I'll just go run for a month and I'll just like magically just like look insanely better.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's kind of a hack. And, you know, a lot of people, I hate to say a lot of people, you'll see on the internet is what I'll say, people advising you to not run to lose weight. And they'll, really lift, get your steps in and lift, get your steps in and lift, 40 minutes of incline cardio will help you lose weight and build muscle. And that's definitely totally true. However, running, even if you do like a 30-minute run, you might only burn, 300 some calories or something like that. If you eat less and you burn 300 calories that you weren't burning, that's a considerable deficit that'll,
Yeah.
take you down. So
Like now 300 calories from running minus 300 calories in your diet. Now you're minus 600 total
exactly,
from where you were before. I think
exactly.
there's also like a weird thing where like running is very like primal and human,
Mm-hmm.
and it does
Yes.
something to your body that like other forms of working out like don't do. Like going to the
Yes.
gym is essentially forced like what would have been 6 hours of outdoor labor and like
Right.
foraging and stuff
Building a
is now
fence or
squeezed
something.
into like 45 minutes like at the
Yes.
gym, right? Where like running
100%.
is still, other than putting on shoes now, is still like essentially what it was,
What it's
6,000
always
years
been.
ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny because you look at like, maybe like middle-aged older people when they're running, often they'll be like decently like leaner, right? In
Mm-hmm.
better
Yeah.
shape. But if
Yeah.
you ever look at like a cyclist in that same age category, right, and they're non-professional, they're
Mm-hmm.
always a little tubby. Something about cyclists, like like you might get better cardiovascular system. You'll probably get pretty insane calves, but
Mm-hmm.
like rarely do they ever lose the gut, which I always found to be like a funny little thing.
It's hips and down. Because and don't they want to, I mean, this is professionals, but don't they want to be lighter up top?
Well, like if you look at professional cyclists, yeah, they have like zero upper bump.
Uh-huh.
And
But
like my cousin used to work with them, and he's like, yeah, that's like by design. They're supposed to be like
mm-hmm.
sticks up top, but their legs are just like insane.
Yeah. I feel like the people that are professionals or that are not professionals that just cycle, to your point, I think they're just doing it for the cardio. But when you're running, you're also pumping your arms. And so even though it's not like an arm workout, you're still using them, and that also costs calories to
Yeah.
move your arms.
You're using your core
You're
because you're
using your
bracing
core.
with every
Yep.
step. Yeah.
100%. So you're just getting a little bit more total body action. And so that'll help the little gut kind of melt away. Real quick before we keep on this train, folks, welcome to episode number 16. We're about however long we are in, and we got to reintroduce Daniel Hopwood. He made his first appearance on the show in episode 10 for the Balls Deep Pod Volume 1, when myself, Hopwood, Sean, and Mitch all hopped on and basically did one of our catch-up calls, but podcast version. And so he's back. It is Tuesday evening for you, right?
Yes. Yep.
because you're 12
Tuesday
hours
at
ahead of me,
7
right?
p.m.
Yes. So Hop has just finished the day that I'm starting.
It's
And
gonna be a good day for you, man.
it
I'm
is. I'm
telling you right
excited.
now. Great day.
Excellent. I love it. And so, yeah, Hopwood has a lot going on right now. And I reached out to him about doing a solo pod, and he graciously answered. And here we are back at it again, talking about stuff that we love, fitness, supplements, nutrition, all of that. So you can probably expect some more of that, maybe some side quests, some tangents. But I want to make sure we talk about what Hoppy's up to now. And so along that sort of,
Hold on, but before we jump into
yes,
it,
yes,
I think
please.
we should dedicate this episode to Coach Hartney, who passed away
Oh,
recently,
yes.
who was our high school running coach for your 4 years, 3 years for me.
Yes.
And he
Good
was
call.
he's just an absolute goat of a coach.
A
Who,
legend. Oh,
I gotta
yeah,
be
we have to
honest,
talk
I
about
don't
it.
know how he lived until like he had to be like 90 something, right? And I thought he was 90 before, and that was 8 years ago or 9 years ago would have been the last time I like saw him.
Yeah, well, he was lying about his age for sure because he kept saying he was turning like 70 every year, like when I was
Dude,
when I was
yeah, dude,
there.
he definitely had to be 80 because
He
I
was
think
mid 80s
Lucas
when he
said he
passed.
died at like nine. Oh, he died passed at mid 80s.
I think I took a picture of the not his obit, but something. Did Lucas said that he was 90 something? I could be
I
wrong.
thought Lucas said that, yeah, but that was also like maybe 2 months ago this happened.
Nice. Yeah, shout out Lucas Sensio. Oh, wait, here it is. Um, Dale Thomas Hartney, 81, passed away Friday, June 7th, 2024, after a
Oh, he's
long
only
battle with
81.
Alzheimer's disease. Yeah. So maybe he wasn't lying about his age that much. I just feel like he kept saying he was turning 70
Maybe
every
I was
year.
just like, yeah, a lot younger at the time, and he just seemed a
Right.
lot older.
For
That
sure.
being
For
said,
sure.
he still probably ran like what 4 miles at practice every day or so.
He was running, especially like my freshman and sophomore year, your freshman year. He was running every practice, and he would do, like when we were doing 2-a-days in August, he would do some of the workout because we had some of the special needs kids, and so he would do some of the workout with them. And then when we would come back later in the day, I think he would do the run sometimes with them. So he was doing
Would he?
like, yeah, I think he was doing sometimes 2 a day in his late 60s, early 70s. Just ridiculous. But yes, I'm so glad you said that. And so if we can do a little Hartney tangent, he did track at Upper Arlington, was the track coach for about 47 years, I think. And then he did cross country. I think he hit 40 near the end of his coaching career. And anyways, my senior year was his last year doing both track and cross country. And then he retired. But talk about someone who could just coin a phrase.
Yeah.
He would always, because he would sit us down before practice sometimes and talk for like an hour, and it would be from like 3:30 to 4:30, and he would just talk, and we'd just be in the wrestling room, and like sometimes we would like punch each other in the kidney or like punch each other just to see if we could hold our exclamation out. So we were just screwing around, but he would just go on and on. And one of his favorite things to say whenever he would frame like a political conversation, we wouldn't talk about politics really, but he would be like, well, I'm a liberal Marxist with, I'm a liberal Republican with Marxist tendencies. And he would say that all the time to like preface what he was about to say. And I didn't even understand that combination of words at the time. I was just like, okay, whatever. But man, he would say some funny stuff.
Yeah, he was hilarious, and I don't know, like I think something that you didn't experience because you didn't have the new coach the year after. Just
right.
like he was like very much so the ideal coach of like the aspect of like I'm gonna give you the freedom to do what you want with the realization that you need to perform on Saturday were races or Sunday. I
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
remember.
Saturday.
Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because after you left, they like we couldn't go play frisbee anymore. We couldn't go play football anymore. There was no
Right.
tag, right? And so for the audience to know, we run every day, right? Half of the practices are probably in like a park where the coach can kind of see us and we're doing, intervals, fartlicks, that kind of thing. And the other half are like long runs. But when we would go do long runs, us non-varsity people or like maybe even the less serious varsity people, it
Uh-huh.
was frisbee for an hour, it was football for an hour, it was do nothing for an hour, right? But and he knew,
Oh,
right?
he
Because the
totally knew.
assistant coach knew, right?
Yeah, yeah, Neeb
And
knew.
they
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
care. And then when the new coach came in, totally cracked down all of that. Like we were being hunted.
That
And so,
sucks.
I think he really just like created an environment that was like super awesome to like start, like just run cross country, right? Because cross
Oh, it
country
was
was a
great.
bit of the participation sport, right? Didn't require a lot of skill. So the team was quite big.
Yeah, oh, it was huge. I mean, that's exactly why I joined my freshman year because I was 5 foot when I graduated eighth grade, and I wanted to play football like I had done third grade on. And my dad, who is only 5'8", was like, "No, I'm not going to let you play football." I was injured a bunch myself, had my shoulder popped out. I just don't want you to get hurt. You haven't hit a growth spurt yet. And for the record, I'm not even 5'8". I'm 5'7" 3/4", bitch. Uh, but I begrudgingly did cross country. I was like, all the weird kids do cross country. I don't want to do cross country. And then ended up being probably one of the best forced decisions upon me ever because of Hardney and because I ended up getting reasonably good at it. Um, he had a phrase that he used to say all the time, and he ended up coming to my graduation party. And like the golden bear signs that people would put in their yard, cross country bear or whatever. I had those out, and instead of doing cards, people just would sign the sign and write like a nice little phrase or something. And he wrote what he used to say all the time, which was just "smoke 'em if you got 'em."
Yeah, yeah, I forgot about that one. It's like as we're about to go run, like races where he's
That's
like, all
right.
right, smoke him if you got him, go to the start line. It's like, what?
And like if you question him, he'd be like, "Oh, what are you, a communist?" And you're like, "Oh, I guess." I don't know. He's a little commie. And you're like, "Okay, okay." It was
like
so
like
funny.
things that you like probably couldn't get away with now, but we were just on that like cusp of before like PC became a thing,
It was
right?
right
It was
before. It was like the,
like
the
and
end of the golden era.
right, and it was like I don't know how your parents were, but my parents were like old enough. They're like, yeah, he's just like he's not doing anything bad. Like,
Oh yeah. Well, so both my parents are the children of World War II vets, and so they're like, yeah,
yeah,
that's
same. Yeah.
that works. Oh, okay, gotcha. So I think that sort of mindset is just like, yeah,
I
he's
remember
just a
one
funny old
thing,
guy.
and like I'll make this like a little like philosophical lesson, but
Yeah, let's
something he
go.
would always like say is like, why would we go lifting? What does that have to do with running? How is lifting going to make you a better runner? He's like, running is going to make you a better runner. And I still think about that to this day when it
Uh-huh.
comes to just like, if I'm like working on my business and like maybe I start watching like a YouTube video or like reading a book or
Mm,
something, and I'll just start thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, is this actually like something that's going to translate? Or like, am I kind of like lifting when I should be running?
yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so a lot of times it's like,
Great.
okay, maybe this will be useful and let me like file it away for when that thing comes up. But unless it's like, a tactical kind of step for what
Hmm.
I'm trying to figure out, then I'll let myself do it. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I'm just kind of like bullshitting myself and wasting time. Like, sure, maybe I'll remember it later, but I'll probably just have to come back to it anyway. So let's just save it
Right.
for that time.
Yeah,
But so I
100%.
think about that a lot, which is like kind of funny.
That's great. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was listening to a little bit of the BDR or BDP beforehand just to make sure there wasn't too much overlap. And something you said in terms of how you help manage your time is it urgent but not important? Is it important but not urgent? And I
Hmm.
think those are very important distinctions because sometimes you can have something come up that you have to handle urgently, but it has nothing really to do with what you're doing. It's just an annoying
Mm-hmm.
thing that you have to handle. And then something can come up that's super important, or you have a revelation and you're like, oh my gosh, this is extraordinary, but I can't take any action steps towards it right now. So I'm going to write this down real quick and maybe revisit it in a little bit of time. But I thought that was useful. One more thing on the Hartney train. There was it was during a meet, and it was one of the varsity meets, and one of our runners, he would run with like his shoulders really up high and kind of like do this.
Who was it? Do you
With
remember? Because I feel like I do remember
it
that.
was Kent Bush, and so he would have been a
Yeah.
senior when you were a freshman, and it was my sophomore year. And in the middle of the race, like Kent runs by Hartney, and Hartney just goes, "Are you running or are you swimming?" It was so good.
Who was the guy that used to do the Braveheart speech before the open races or JV? I can't remember, but
yeah. It wasn't. There was a Sam. Was it like a ginger kid?
no, it was a guy with brown hair who started it, but he was probably left at the end of my
What about Ian? Does
sophomore.
that name sound familiar?
Yeah, I think it might have been Ian.
Okay, I could see
sounds more
that.
like it.
Ian Rhodes, I think, was his name.
Yeah, just get in the middle, all animated, like saying the Braveheart speech. You're all just like, ah! And dude, we had a Peyton Warner doing it my senior year, his junior year after you left.
Okay, gotcha.
And dude, I think 3-4 races in, maybe whoever the new coach was put an end to that. We weren't allowed to do it anymore, and we were like, what? And
that's a little top
like, yeah, you're
down.
just like not allowed to do it. And I remember my dad being like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're a bunch of kids at like a cross country race.
Who cares
like,
at all?
Right? It's like teams wanted to join that. Like I remember, in the prior seasons, like so it was either JV or the open guys that would do it.
Uh-huh.
The varsity guys would come over, the girls would come over, right? Like everybody on the team always wanted to be a part of that thing.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Really, like killed that tradition. Like I still think about that and I get like amped up by it.
Yeah, well, it was so fun, and like I think, dang, when was it? Sometimes for the varsity, it'd just be like 7 of us, maybe 10 on like a certain meet.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just, it was just as dumb. The stuff I would say, I would just pick quotes from Optimus Prime from the Transformers movies and just say them in a string that sort of resembled some sort of speech. And like Lucas will attest to this, like it almost made no sense, but like I would just be like, fate rarely calls upon us at a moment of our choosing, stuff like that. And it was fun. Like, I don't know, the stress before a race can be real, where you're like, oh, okay, I want to do good, da da da. So you obviously want to focus and get dialed in, but there's something to be said about a group of 14 to 18, maybe 19-year-olds just coming together and just laughing right before this sort of big event where sometimes there's like 80 to 200 kids, running on a course,
all
and it's just like this
line that are going to funnel into like a 5-person wide thing in the next 200 meters. I think also something that like for the audience to keep in mind, this was like 2017, 2018. So like there was no like I guess there was like iPhone, but like it wasn't like the slim device with AirPods like it is now, right? You had to have like headphones. It's like a thing you had to like carry around, and like we didn't like carry those around at races, right? It was kind of left in your bag once your parents found you. It was like, all right, I'm like gonna ditch this thing. And it's like it was something that like brought you out of yourself, where I think probably now a lot of kids go to those races and like, especially if you're not allowed to do something like that, just you're kind of getting your zone by yourself, which isn't a bad thing, but
right.
I wouldn't trade those memories for any hype up song.
Oh no, not at all. And like you had people playing like Pokemon on the bus. Like it was just like it was just like a very it wasn't unorganized because we were always exactly where we needed to be when we were supposed to be there. But he gave us a lot of freedom to just do your thing. But if you acted like an idiot, well, what are you doing over there? Come on, get over here. He would raise his voice at you, and then it was over because you're like, okay, well, I've clearly done something wrong if I'm getting yelled at, which happens rarely.
I say you really had to mess up for him to yell at you.
Yeah, well, you remember Coach Dan?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm sure. So he used to tell us all the time, and because he was only 23 when he started, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he had just graduated OSU or something.
Yeah, and so even though he was only a few years older, he was like, "You guys have no idea how much Hartney has chilled out." He would always tell us that. He's like, he used to get so fired up and mad at us that it was like, a hurricane or like a storm. It was just something to witness. And I could see that, but I'm glad we got the chill older version that we got.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it made for some fun times. And although those ceremonies, what were they? What would they be like at the end of the season? You would sit with all your parents.
Cross country banquet, I guess.
The banquet, that's what it was. Yes. That would be like a 4-hour event.
Oh, because he would just ramble
it
about
would be
everyone.
Everyone.
I don't think there was a single year where he actually knew my name. And I was never consistently varsity, but I'd rotate in and out of there and JV and stuff. And he still gets I remember, I think it was my senior year, he called me Cookie. And I was like, you've never called me that. It's not even close to my name, right? And I remember my friends after was like, dude, did he just call you Cookie? Everyone just died. What was that?
Oh man!
And I was like, yeah, maybe it was dementia. I don't know.
Oh my god, that is so funny, Cookie. That's incredible. There was only one time I can remember him getting really mad at me for my performance. And it was in track season. And I was having a really hard time breaking 5-minute mile. I was just consistently hitting basically between a 5 and a 5:10. And whether it was the 4x mile or just the regular mile, no matter what. But my practices were getting better. And after a race, and I can't remember who the 4x4 team was. This was probably my junior year. It was definitely me, Nate, Victor, and then someone else. But we finished, and I think Nate and Victor were kind of upset with me on the low. They didn't tell me. Nate told me after when I told him the story, but that he was like, yeah, Victor and I were a little upset. But when I came around, Hartney was we were behind the bleachers. He exploded at me. He's like, well, what are you doing? And I thought he was kidding at first. And then he kept going. And he's like, you just need to be tougher. He's like, you're running out there. You're not tough. And he said a couple other things, but that really stuck with me. I was like, what? And in my head, I'm getting defensive. I'm like, well, yeah. I can lift more than all the cross country guys, which is totally irrelevant. Like we were just talking about, doesn't mean anything. And I was like, I'm tough, blah, blah, blah. But I think upon reflection, I realized this sometime in college, he was totally right. And when you PR in a race and it was really hard, and then because you've done it, and at least this was for me, but because I had done it, I would think it would be easy the next time. I would forget how hard it was and what it felt like. And I'm like, oh, I know I can do it, so I'll do it. And I actually sort of plateaued one of my cross country years because that was sort of my mindset. It might have been my junior year, but it was the same thing in track where I knew I could hit a 5-minute mile consistently, but going beyond that would require getting really uncomfortable. And I just don't think I was willing to do that. I didn't want to go too hard on the third lap and not be able to kick it on the fourth lap. And I was just holding myself back And that's just because I was unwilling to go to that place of just having a terrible time, but to get the
Yeah.
better time. And now I understand that. But at the time, I remember just being heartbroken. And afterwards, because he like straight up yelled at me for chewed me out for probably 2.5 minutes straight, which is
Damn.
a long time. And then
Yeah.
the assistant coach, her name is Kathleen. She said something in a very soft and soothing voice, but it was just along the lines of, "Yeah, you're just not there for your team right now," and just like continue to just like dig the stake into my heart. And
Like, I get it, I suck.
I get it. I get it. I get it. And afterwards, Nate and Victor both gave me hugs. They were like, "Yikes, we did not think that was what was going to happen." I
We're
was
like,
like,
we're mad. We
"Ugh."
ain't that mad, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
right. We're not going to question your character, but he was right. He was right to do that, and I really appreciated him doing that years down the line. Because I was like, okay, I was unwilling to go there, and I think about that a lot now. And we were talking about this on our last BDR sync. I am the one who
yep.
does this. I'm the one who endures the pain. I'm the one who gets up. I'm the one who does the work. And so it's not about, especially when you're trying to perform like that, it's not about necessarily having a good time.
Yeah.
It's about maybe enduring something for the reward of having achieved whatever it is that you're
Well, I think it's
hoping
because
to
this is
achieve.
something that I think about from my cross country days as well, is like, I call it knowing when to race. So just like, for example,
Mm,
um, when the new coach came in, right? Like, I don't know, you probably don't remember this, but like, so I started, for the audience, I started cross country in second grade doing AAU Junior Olympic cross country, right? Ran from second grade to seventh grade doing that. And then eighth grade, I got tendonitis and Osgood slaughter until my senior year, right? So it was just like 4 years where I was like kind of injured. Um, and so it was really painful to run, right? So like, and it was like every day.
I
And so
remember that.
so my senior year, we got the new coach, right? And she had never seen me run before. She had no idea of like my history. And in practice, I never practiced very fast because it hurt, right? It hurt to run every day. And but I could push myself during the race because I knew that was only for 20 minutes, right? It wasn't for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually, because I was running, I was like the last person on varsity or somewhere around there. She would try to make me run like the practice with the varsity kids, which I guess I couldn't do. Like, one, I just didn't have the pace, and like, because I had been injured for like 4 years, like I guess like that's not how I was like operating at that time. And she kind of like sat me aside and was like, "You need to run faster during practice." I was like, "No, I don't. Like, I can run fast during the race. Like, I can practice like this." And she was like, you need to do this. And I was like, "Ma'am, I've been running for 9 years. Like, the difference between myself and everyone else is that I know how to race. They know how to
Mm-hmm.
practice."
Yeah,
Right. And
100%. That's a real
so,
thing.
like, we had, I won't call them out by name, but we had a very good person who was the top person on our team who
Mm-hmm.
would practice faster than they would race. Right. They
Mm-hmm.
had some kind of like mental block around it or whatever.
100%.
And like, I even think about that when it comes to like work now, is kind of like, where am I like putting in the hard practice effort without actually doing like the racing effort? Like,
Mm-hmm.
where do I need to focus? Because I think people are, it's like kind of like starting a business, right? It's like, you can think about all the ideas you want, but it's the actual execution that makes a difference. Same with this podcast. You talked about it for a long time, but now
Mm-hmm.
you're on episode 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each one of these is the race that you get to run, right? Everything else
Oh
is just
yeah.
practice.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that. And um I'm curious as to who you're thinking of, but 100% that was me with
They
the
have a twin, and I'm thinking of the faster twin.
yeah, for sure. For sure. Who appears to have gotten over that now, because he's been
Yeah.
crushing some races in North Carolina. But dude, it was the same. It was the same for me. I especially in track season and cross country, especially my senior year, I ended up getting my best time ever, and it was a 16:52, and that would be along the lines of where I was practicing. Um, but in practice, I was also a really good pacer. Like, I wouldn't need a stopwatch. It was always like they would have me pace. Okay, are we doing a mile, half mile, 400, 200, whatever it was? I would lead because I could get it within a second or two just internally. And so I think that really boosted my confidence in practice. And then when it came to races, when we're not doing intervals, we're just doing 4 consecutive laps around the track or whatever. I think I would just get too in my head and not want it to suck on the third lap, which it's always going to suck. The third lap sucks.
Yeah.
Regardless. And then try and save it for the fourth. And I would always I can't break this. It's like, well, you're doing the same thing and you're not changing your strategy at all. You're unwilling to push yourself in a certain way.
I think my advantage back then was that I had just been running for so long.
For sure.
And I remember, and this was like early. This had to be like I was maybe 10 or 12 when I experienced this. Like, I had a race and like, dude, I was like, and it was USATF because we did cross country one season, track the other, and I always got my doors blown in on the track stuff. Like, I was just never, I'm not fast. I just have good endurance, right? Maybe we ran the mile, right? Everyone else is finished, and I just had this like moment of like, my dad's yelling at me to like, like, oh, you're almost done or whatever. I was like, I'm just gonna like go as hard as I can right now, right? And I just went all out, and it was this weird like tunnel vision thing where I couldn't feel my body at all. All I could do is like kind of see in front of me, but I could push myself like as hard as I wanted. And once I experienced that, I like developed the ability to kind of like tap into that.
Oh, that's
which
incredible.
was like my ability to like race, right? And you can't live in that zone the whole time, but it was always like I could start to kind of approach it and then like tap into it at the end when I needed it.
Nice.
And I think that was like the only reason why I was like decent, other than like I had, a really big base of running, was that like, oh, like I know that I can just like experience this thing, turn it on for like the last minute, and I'll be okay because it's gonna end, right? Where like, you were saying like you were scared to like touch to the edge, probably because in your mind, like, right, you're like, oh, I don't want to go too hard on the
what if I gas out?
Because if I gas out, like, then you go over the edge, right? Where I was like, oh, like, no, I know like going over the edge is just when you're done, right?
Yes.
Like, this is the perfect time to like hit that edge, right? Yes. But it's one of those things where it's like you got to do enough races to learn that.
Yeah, 100%. And so, well, that's what kind of why I want to sign up for a 5K, because a couple of weeks ago, Orange Theory had or at least we had our regional dry try. And what dry try is twice a year. Orange Theory has this thing called dry try, and it's a dry triathlon. So you don't get wet. You're not swimming. You basically do 2,000 meters on the rower, and then you go to the weight floor, and there are 6 exercises, and you do a certain amount of reps of each for 2 rounds, and it totals 300 reps of all these bodyweight exercises. And then you head to the treadmill and you do a 5K, and then we just take your total time. Well, we had our dry try, and then they pooled all the people who had the best individual splits, the best row split, the best floor split, and the best tread split, and they made a relay team. So each person now only does one section, and we'll see how fast we can do it as a team. The guy for Westerville got an injury like the day before, and so we were trying to text people, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And no one was doing it. And so I ended up getting my classes covered for the Sunday of the regional dry try, so I could participate in it because I did the staff dry try. And I only had to do the 5K on the tread. I was like, shoot, I've never done a timed tread 5K. So that was, weird. That was a little interesting. And I think there's certain advantages to doing it on a tread, even though it's way more boring, because if you would just have the willpower to hit the button and then not touch it again, you can't slow down. Whereas like if you start getting tired outside, you might unconsciously start slowing down. So you have to stay on top of your pace. Well, anyways, I ended up running a 17:15, which I haven't done in 12 years.
I was gonna say I don't even know if that was like any like I don't think my fastest time back then was even that.
And so I was like, oh my God. And, like we talked about in the Balls Deep pod, and, last time we did our sync, I've got the pump and run coming up at the end of March. And I think they're going to start signing up for the November, but the top competitors are running between like 16:15 and 16:45. And when I saw the 17:15, I was like, oh man, like I can shave off 30 seconds, like
Yeah.
that. I could get a 16:45.
Like if I actually train, I could
Yeah, if I train, I can do this because I came into that shit untrained. And my goal was to get under 18. So I was happy with that. But there was a point about halfway through the race or the run where I was like, ooh, am I going to get nauseous? Because I'm definitely not about to throw up at a work function.
Nah, dude, you're not drinking. It's totally appropriate.
Right. And granted, like people do the dry try and throw up because they do work so hard, but I'm not. I was like, I'm not going so hard that I throw up. I'm not doing that today. But so not to say that it wasn't challenging, because it definitely was. But when I finished, I was able to like recover reasonably quickly, and I stretched and stuff, so I wasn't too sore the next day. Point of me talking about that was just okay. Like I'm feeling pretty good. If that's my starting point, I just got to make sure that I sign up for some street 5Ks, some road races leading up to that point. So I remember what it's like to race. Because I think it would be pretty stupid of me to not do at least 3 or 4, if not more, leading up to March. Because if I would never do that. But if you show up to a 5K, a road 5K, even if you've been practicing, you haven't done one. I mean, that's just ignorant. But I have Hartney in the back of my head telling me that I'm not tough. And so I'm thinking about that, and I'm so glad that I do, because I just like,
may you be one with your demons.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm praying that my workouts suck and that I have a really bad time while I'm doing them, just so that I can get used to having a bad time. I know that's a weird thing to hope for, but like,
well, I don't know if you heard it, but like, I think when Huberman was talking to Goggins, he talked about the mid-singular cortex.
Yes, dude, I love this.
For the audience, it's some part of your brain that like when you do hard things that you specifically don't want to do,
yes,
and
that's
you
important.
Do it and overcome it, then you like kind of build that like do hard things muscle in your head.
Yes, it's like an actual thing that you can get better at, and that part of the brain grows. And I think later on, like in that same conversation, Huberman does a good job of talking about how, and I think he kind of has this cool little one-liner tag, and he's like, and some have even associated it with the will to live, which makes sense, like in a survival sort of setting, when you should probably just kill yourself, but you don't, and just like the worst sort of imaginable circumstances. And there's plenty of people in history you can look to be like, why did they go on? And then
it's
they go
in Man's Search for Meaning, when they're in the Jewish prison camps.
Yes.
It's like the most gnarly conditions, and it's like they would literally lie to themselves to get themselves to have like a will to live, and just like daydream, right, to get themselves through the day.
Yeah, exactly. And the punishments, like they would have them move dirt just back and forth across the camp for no reason. Like that was their job. Like their job didn't even have meaning, and that was purposeful to just make their suffering worse. But yeah, so like when you think about situations like that, well, everything you do is something you don't want to do. And so it's interesting that you can actually get a stronger willpower. I mean, obviously you can break, but that stuff like that can give you sort of that willpower. So yeah, it's getting to be cold plunge season now that it's fall, because I don't have a cooler, and I'm not going to buy a bunch of ice every day. So I just put it outside at night, let it get cold. And now that it's fall, so fall through winter, early spring, I almost don't even care about the dopamine after anymore. I'm just like cold plunge because I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And just sort of
hearing you talk about this running and working out and like competition stuff, though, it makes me want to see you train and do high rocks.
Yeah. That would be so fun. Are you still going to do it?
Yeah, my goal is for the listener, I live in Singapore kind of currently. And my goal is, because I still have a little bit of injury stuff I'm dealing with, to be healthy enough to do the high rocks that'll be in Bangkok in March. And then
Nice.
my goal is that I'll come back to the US some point mid next year, and try to align it and be somewhere where there's going to be a high rocks in the US too, to try to do it for a more competitive time.
Nice. That's awesome. So do you want to explain? I think you talked about in the BD podcast, but do you just want to go over high rocks real quick?
Yeah, so high rocks is considered the World Series of fitness racing. And the way you can think of it is it's like part 10K, part functional kind of CrossFit movement exercises. So what you do is you run 1 kilometer, and then you do, I think it's 1,000K ski erg, right? And then you do another kilometer, and then you do like a sled pull, another kilometer sled push. And so there are all these kind of like functional hybrid, like CrossFit style workouts that are all separated by running 1K. And it started in Europe. It's become very big in Asia, and is starting to kind of blow up in the US. I think next year the World Championships will be held in Chicago.
Nice.
Which is the first time they'll be held there. They've always been in Europe before, I believe. And I can't remember if I talked about this in the previous pod, but like my personal prediction and the reason we're kind of focusing my supplement brand around this specific kind of high rocks hybrid athlete category is that I think, in 5 to 10 years, it will kind of leave CrossFit in the dust and be that next thing that is not quite as accessible as, people going out to do 5Ks or people training for marathons, but something more along the line, but a little bit less than like an Ironman, right?
Yeah.
Because the difference is then like CrossFit is that none of the exercises are like dangerous or require a lot of athleticism, right? You don't have to be able to do like ring muscle ups. You don't have to be able to do handstand push-ups or like handstand walks. Like you don't have to overhead snatch
climbs to like 300-pound deadlift.
And like someone died in the swimming part this year of like the CrossFit Open or whatever.
Oh wow.
Right. So it's like and CrossFit as a whole, from what I understand, has like had a lot of controversy about stuff behind the scenes. And I think High Rocks kind of takes that out and makes it a standardized thing. So with CrossFit, the event's different every time. You don't know what you're getting into going into it. Where it's the same thing every single time. The cool thing about High Rocks is you can do it as an individual. You can do it with a partner. And there's an open and pro kind of like weight categories, if you will. It just determines how much weight you actually move. And it's different for men and women. And then you can also do like a relay team, right? So then you have 4 people and like, you do different stations. So there's like this really big kind of team community aspect that a lot of the, like CrossFit has it in the gym, but it's like when you go to the event, like you're always competing for the most part as an individual, right? And I think with High Rocks, it's a bit unique outside as well, because a lot of the like, at least here in Singapore, there's kind of these like, I don't know, like they're like CrossFit, but without the Olympic lifting, kind of berries, if you will, but like a little bit more strength focused. And a lot of these gyms will have run clubs that they host, on a Wednesday night and on like a Saturday morning that people can just show up to. There's a coach, it's free, anyone can come, right? You don't have to be a part of the gym. It's kind of like a lead funnel for the gym.
Sure.
And
Nice.
they'll
That's cool.
just run you through the workout, and you'll get like 40, 50 people to show up to these running things to train for hard rock.
Sick. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I also think it's like kind of on top of this whole like run club trend vibe that we see like going on as well.
That's super interesting. So when did you say when are you trying to be back stateside for the American High Rocks one?
Well, so I don't know if I'm going to go to the championship one. But if you look, there were 6 this year, I think, in America.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm going to try to align with one of them. I don't know yet because a lot of the dates haven't been announced for America.
Okay, nice. Well, definitely keep me posted on that because that could be a fun thing. Like,
I'll definitely want to do it doubles.
I was about to say I might be interested in doing that.
Interested in doing singles currently. Gotcha.
Okay, well that's very cool. Well, do you want to shift gears over to a little bit more business side of things? Because I definitely want to make sure we go down that route a bit. So when we talked about this on the pod in July, we went over the fair that you went to start everything out. We went through the manufacturer that you had to fire because they were fucking you and trying to like quadruple charge you, basically saying, oh, we cut it and it's only a quarter of what you said. And you're like, what? And we also sort of talked about your processes, your to-do list guy. And, we talked about the urgency versus important and that sort of framework. Let's sort of talk about where you are at now. And I guess let's just refresh. What are you working on? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So working on what we're calling a performance hydration supplement. So you can think of it as taking, electrolyte product like Element, and we added things like creatine to help muscle maintenance, taurine to improve energy, rhodiola rosea to reduce fatigue, and ginseng, which helps overall inflammation and nitrogen production to also, increase energy in the body. So really our approach was, there's a lot of different things that are good on the market, but they're kind of not an all one thing. And so we wanted a kind of one-stop hydration product that included a lot of things my friend and I were taking on a daily basis, and, really just create like kind of a product that we felt like we wanted and that kind of meet the needs of, the hybrid athlete trend. Because, 6 years ago when I worked out and I lifted 4 days a week and ran 4 days a week, I just called that working out. But now I get a really cool term called hybrid athlete.
That's right, baby.
And so we're trying to make supplements that are really kind of geared towards that niche with, kind of longevity and recovery in mind. So, kind of taking, where supplements currently stand in the industry, which was honestly really developed originally for like bodybuilders, and, the kind of Brian Johnson longevity approach, and bringing it together, to, have improved performance over as long a period of time as possible.
Love it. Yeah. Because you had started with a couple other ideas originally, when did you finally realize, okay, this is where we're going and this is the direction we're heading in, and let's commit?
Yeah. So, we, when we looked at other things, it was kind of like, what is something that is maybe a bit unique and we can like, kind of market ourselves, right? And I'll just give you an example. Like I had an idea for a product before that was a good industry, a good product, but I just couldn't. And like I had a great name and like, marketing ideas and whatnot, but like I just wasn't the person. Like, because I even started to build the website, and it just became very apparent to me very quick that like I was not the person that was going to be able to like make this successful. Right. I know
what you're talking about.
It just really took like an expert marketer to make this successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this product, it was kind of a slow roll of like, well, like green powders are popular, but it's like, the science behind them isn't great. And like, and I'm not anti greens powder, but it's like, we don't really have a competitive advantage. It's like, well, these electrolyte things are interesting. It was like, I think there's room for improvement because we see it, and
Mhm.
they're not really prevalent in Asia yet, which is where we're initially launching the business. So it's kind of like take something that's worked, in the US and bring it over to another market that needs it, but just isn't kind of aware of it yet, or like
Mhm.
has the distribution for it. And so then we, developed the formula ourselves, talked to friends. Eventually, we pitched some longevity and sports doctors in Singapore on the idea, and they all like loved it. And so we figured, we had like a pretty good, start from there. And of course, built the website, kind of just did some marketing ideation. It was like, okay, we can do this, at least starting out, right? Are we
Mhm.
marketing experts? Will we hire someone eventually? Hopefully.
Right.
But we can do the groundwork of this product. And so it's just kind of like a combination of like it's been proven before. We think we have a unique take, and we can do this ourselves. Was how we kind of landed on pursuing this current idea.
Awesome. Yeah. So last time we had talked, you were working on the website, and you had your board of, like you said, exercise scientists, longevity experts, researchers, that sort of thing, and you were working on the new manufacturer. Where are you at now? Have you been tasting stuff? Where's the trajectory kind of going now?
Yeah, so we've had some second samples from some manufacturers, some first samples from different ones, and we've kind of narrowed down three that we're like pitting against each other,
Mm-hmm.
just to see who can kind of nail the formula the best. Just for insight, if you've ever taken pre-workout, it honestly doesn't taste very good, right? But you're
Mm-hmm.
also not drinking it because it tastes good.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're really shooting for something that is, pretty flavorful and like you look forward to drinking. And that's really difficult with the ingredients that we have in there, such as rhodiola rosea and ginseng,
Mm-hmm.
because they are plant extracts, so they can be quite bitter.
Yep.
So we're really trying to see with those three what can they do, right? Because they're all at like a price for us where we can get the product, still sell it for a profit without making it crazy expensive. And so we're, hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll be able to pick between one of those three. But we're still, really kind of refining the flavor. It's a lot harder than you would think. And then, on the business side, if you go to the website, and you go to the science section, we're starting to put out blog posts about why we pick the particular ingredients, kind of why they're important for a hybrid athlete or someone doing high rocks, and the science of why that particular ingredient is important and what it does. So it's not just marketing bullshit.
I
There's
love it. What's the
actual.
website?
It's liveessential.co, but it's like LIVESS. Like Live Essential. There's just one E.
Oh, nice. Glad you said that.
Yep.
.co. Sick.
So
That's
it's kind of like if
awesome.
you spell it like Live Essential.
Oh, yep, yep. This is the logo. Very
So
good.
yeah, if you go to the science section, we only have the salt one up so far, but currently working on all the other ones. And then once we get product, or I should say, kind of final round product, and what?
Just the
Oh
Michael
yeah,
Jordan.
yeah.
Essential
No.
hydration.
That's a very random sweaty black man.
Oh, that's so
That is
funny.
not Michael Jordan for Gatorade copyright purposes. But yeah, I mean, so it's that, and then once we get some final samples in, give it to the kind of athletes we know, have them
Hmm.
test it, start making some content, get some photos, redo the website, and kind of start generating pre-orders so that when we actually land product, we're not starting from scratch. We're kind of have already made a little bit of noise in our market, and can start selling.
That's awesome. I'm so excited for this. I mean, you said hybrid athletes, performance and longevity. I'm sort of the target audience, so it's like obviously I'm going to be a little biased, but I think my favorite part of the supplement is that there's creatine in it. For a lot of reasons, cognitive and physical. But when you had kind of described your thinking about this earlier, you'd mentioned, well, if people can buy all of these supplements and have it be cheaper than what we're doing, then like what's the point? Just buy all the supplements and then take them. But I think what's cool about this is that is your mindset. And so for me, like, and I know for you, there's so many awesome supplements out there that it's easy to, ooh, I want this, I want this, I want that. So anything that sort of just condenses a handful of them, almost like a multivitamin, but not for vitamin's sake. That's what really excites me about that. And creatine, especially, I haven't been taking it in a while, but I'm gonna start again, and I probably just won't stop. And especially if you're a female listening to this, you should just start taking creatine. I think the benefits for creatine, I was looking at something the other day, and one of my other friends was just posting about it, but the benefits for creatine in females, it shares all the same benefits that males have, but it's just more. They just get more out of it. And so that would be my recommendation if you're a female.
Yeah, I mean, I like actually happen to be writing the creatine kind of blog post today.
Oh, cool.
And it is, a product that I think maybe probably you were the same. Like I kind of avoided products that had it when I was in college and like kind of maybe just after graduating college, because there was a stigma around like it's bad for you, it's hardening your kidneys, it'll make you go bald, right?
Yes, I heard all of that.
But when you do all the research, it's like those are just kind of rumors, and it's like one of the most well-researched supplements on the market.
Yeah, that and caffeine, those are the two.
The only downside is that if you take too much, your tummy's going to get upset, right? And if you have a real sensitive stomach, then like, and you can't handle it, you either need to take a lower dose or like maybe it's just not for you. But for the average person, like there's kind of no reason, unless you have some kind of health thing, talk to a doctor,
obviously,
that you shouldn't be taking it, right? It helps muscle maintenance, it helps ATP production, which is how your body produces energy. It's been shown to improve cognitive performance. It's been shown to have antidepressant effects and mood enhancement effects. And
I swear, dude, that's what I noticed first. Like when I take creatine, I notice like within 20 minutes, I can feel it in my brain, and it's almost like it doesn't feel the same as caffeine. Like I'm not like lit or jittery. But there is like a focus to it and kind of like an elevation where you're like, oh, okay. And it lasts for a while.
I mean that's part of so the reason that we put it in our hydration supplement as well is that it has those cognitive benefits, but to really enhance that, you need to take it every day, right? There's that loading phase of 3 to 4 weeks if you just do at the regular RDA opposed to doing 20 grams for like a week or something. But with that, a lot of people kind of are already really bad at drinking a lot of water, right? And when you take creatine, you're supposed to have 3 to 4 liters of water a day, because creatine uptakes more water and holds it in your muscles intramuscularly, right? So that's why you feel a little bit more full when you're on creatine. And with our product also having the salts in it, it has the sodium, potassium, magnesium, that also helps your body hold more water, so that because if you just drink purified tap water all day long, you actually strip your body of a lot of minerals because it can't hold the water in there. So by also having the electrolytes with it, it's helping your body retain more of the water you're drinking, which helps feed, the creatine, helping it hold more water in your body. So you're really making sure that while you're hydrating, you're holding on to the hydration to make sure that creatine is doing everything it can for you. Because if you're not drinking enough water, or the water isn't really staying with you. You really just have like more expensive pee, right? Like
Yes.
you're just kind of
Yes.
like taking things for no reason.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. And so how much, what's the dose of creatine in the product?
It's 5 grams, so it's just
Nice.
like
Perfect. Yep.
they say it's 3 to 5 grams is considered the effective dose for most people.
Mm-hmm.
There's research to suggest that if you're over 180 pounds, that you can do more.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a hard thing, but if you want to do that, then you can just you know take more on your own on the side. Creatine's not terribly expensive, but we can't put 10 grams in our thing because most people don't need that, and also it might make most people's stomach not feel too great. Where 5 grams, most people tolerate just fine.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Well, and the nice thing about probably having it in a product, are you going to do can? Is it a can product?
It's a sachet.
Sachet?
So
Okay, gotcha.
like what like Element comes in, right? Or like
Okay, gotcha.
those old what do you call it? The lemonade things, Crystal Light, like same kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. And so I always I have a frother that I use to mix like my
Okay.
greens or that sort of thing.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Nice. Um how so was all the research done on your guys' end in terms of finding those doses? And then you just checked with when you sent it to those professionals, they were like, "Yep, this is awesome." Is that what that process looked like?
Yeah, so we watched like, a lot of YouTube, read a lot of articles, and like research. Probably the best, you know, summation of like real research papers that is distilled effectively and weeds out, kind of the bullshit is
Mm-hmm.
something called examine.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to that website. So just examine.com. You can look up almost like any supplement, and it has a breakdown of what the supplement is, what its reported effects are, the dosages that it's seen based on the research, and it has like a ton of other information. And something that they do that I really like is they show much quality research is out there and the rating of all of it, right?
Mm.
So we looked at, because some of our ingredients are a little harder to get or a little bit more expensive, the manufacturer would go, "Oh, can we replace like rhodiola with like cordyceps mushrooms, right? Which is a great
Sure.
product." But
Uh-huh.
they're like, "Can we replace it with that?" So we looked it up, right? We have 400, the equivalent of 400 milligrams of rhodiola rosea, and to get an effective dose of cordyceps, the minimum effective dose, which is not really what the research used, is like 1 gram, but
Mm.
really you should use like 4 grams or something.
Okay.
And it's like, but we only know that because we read like what they had. And then on top of that, when you look at the research on cordyceps is like pretty low grade. It's like not,
Yeah,
it's like
there's not been much
C and
done.
D level. It's not A and
Okay.
B, which is kind of what you want. Or if you look
Mm-hmm.
at ashwagandha, it's like very well researched.
Okay,
But
sure.
so that tool really enabled us to see like kind of what is true, what is false, what is hype, what is where we need to be versus what they're recommending. And that allowed us to get an effective dose for all stuff, make sure there was kind of legit research behind it, so that when we did bring it to the doctors, and if they wanted to question us, we could be like, okay, well, this is what we found. Like, if
Yeah.
it's bullshit, like, tell us, dude. Like, we're not like medical professionals, right? We're not researchers, but
Uh-huh.
this is what we understand. And everything we told them, they're like, yeah, that's sound logic, makes sense. The research there's for that, or provide us with the research and we'll look into it
Sweet.
more.
I love
Um,
that.
so I cannot recommend that website enough. I have found,
Examine.com.
yeah, just examine.com.
Yeah, I'll
It's really
definitely be
good.
hopping on there. That's great. Do you care if I hit a bathroom break real quick?
Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Oh, yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask you about
Okay, hold on.
was
Give me 1 sec. I'm putting that book on my reading list in case
what
when
book?
I pick up the one you mentioned earlier.
Oh, Jack Daniel's running formula.
Yeah, because at some
Yeah,
point I'll start running again.
you will love it, dude. It is like it takes the spoon and puts it up to your mouth and feeds it to you. It's so nice.
Hell yeah, I like it. Easy, easy.
Easy. Yeah, for sure. There's like a couple terms, like he'll abbreviate stuff. Like easy run is E. And so like he'll abbreviate certain sort of workouts. But I mean, after you see it a few times, you're like, okay, I know what that is. Nice. Did you get it in there?
Yeah, we're good. We're good to go.
Swag. One of the things I wanted to ask you, so in your mind, what is the ideal end goal of your journey right now? Like, what are you hoping happens in the most ideal scenario?
Like for the business?
For the business, yes, yes.
Yeah, I think, it's definitely make it into a business that my business partner and I can do full time
Mm-hmm.
and becomes kind of, I'd say like the top brand for kind of like hybrid athletic supplements specifically,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a lot of companies that have kind of just repackaged other products and thrown High Rocks onto it and said, "This is a High Rocks product." And
Mm.
maybe I'm a little biased just because I've done so much research on a lot of this stuff now, and I'll go look at the ingredients list and I'll go, "No, that's pre-workout that you repackaged." You
I
know,
follow.
and so really trying to think about like what making products that are unique and kind of specific and focus on performance but also longevity.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, and it's kind of like how we think of it is like make it a one-stop shop product, right? So
Mm-hmm.
hydration, this is the one you need, right? It's not going to be for everyone, but if you're doing some kind of hybrid higher performance athletic thing, this is probably the best one for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to make a gel, right? A lot of
Mm.
gels on the market, but and we have some ideas of what we want to do different that will make it, unique, specific for hybrid athletes. Is it going to be the gel that they're going to take in the Tour de France? Probably not, but it'll
Mm-hmm.
probably be the gel that you want when you're going to your next High Rocks race, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's keeping those things in mind and becoming hopefully the biggest player in that space. And I think our ultimate goal would be to you know kind of continue that trend, but maybe a little bit broader, right?
Okay.
Making supplements for, you know, older people, maybe like my parents, that it's kind of easy to understand, easy for them to take, but includes things like, creatine or NMN. Some of that longevity is stuff where, yeah, sure, they've started a little late, but they can still see a lot of improvement, maybe in, their physical or cognitive performance. Um, we're not there yet. I think for me that's a little bit harder to figure out the marketing. And
Sure.
so I really hope to use this company as our test bed to figure
Mm-hmm.
out how we can make other brands. And kind of the ethos for my business partner and I really is when we're making this stuff is like make something that works,
Yeah,
right? A lot of
that's
bullshit in the
important.
space. A lot of the manufacturers will try to get you to do something that's bullshit. And that's why we have spent so much time researching it, is that we want to be able to point to the data, point to the evidence, and be like, yeah, like it has at least the minimum effective dose, right? There's science saying that it works. It's not some random thing you've never heard of that you can't pronounce, that it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, like, said it on Reddit and some guy on Twitter likes the thing, but like,
Uh-huh.
does it actually do anything? And like, you know, I could go down a big rabbit hole with that. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, so I'd say that's kind of like our goal.
Yeah, well, I think, when I so let's say I'm shopping for just some sort of hydration supplement, right? You can look at Liquid IV, there's Noon, there's, a handful of others. But I'm very much a label reader. And so I always look, and the doses specifically of magnesium, potassium, and sodium are always wildly different across these different
Mm-hmm.
brands. And I'm pretty, I feel pretty good about my knowledge of minimum effective doses
Oh,
for.
wait, hold on. I have an alarm going off of my.
Oh, you're good. Nice.
I was like, oh, they're definitely gonna be able to hear that.
But I feel pretty good about doses for like specifically those electrolytes, especially having just refreshed my nutrition cert. But for things like, so I feel pretty comfortable in saying, okay, no, I'm not going to get this one. No, I'm not going to get this one. This one looks pretty good. But for stuff like pre-workout, there's people in the space like Derek from More Plates, More Dates, and a handful of other content creators who over the past like 5 years have done an amazing job of maybe not bringing it mainstream, but if you're in that sort of fitness supplement performance space, I feel like you have way more knowledge as a community than we used to about stuff. Like when I would buy things, like I got really into supplements the summer after my freshman year of college because I got mono at the end of the year. And I really wanted to get back after it. The Rock was training for Hercules or something, and he was just getting huge. I'm like, okay, this is going to be my summer where I train like The Rock and I eat like The Rock, and I'm going to get all my strength back. And I just went to GNC, and whatever the dude told me to buy, I got. And so I was just like,
oh, yeah. And the thing was, you probably couldn't Google any of it because it was all on like bodybuilder forums, and they're all doing like steroids anyway. So like, who knows?
Oh yeah,
like,
100%. So it was just like
everything was bodybuilding.com back then.
Yes, it was, exactly. Yeah, I mean, me and some of my other friends would order from bodybuilding.com.
I definitely bought some like workout programs or downloaded the free ones or whatever.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with that website.
Oh, it was so good. But I mean, I just had this like, I can't remember if it was whey isolate or what, but I would get that. And I had a handful of pills that I would take every morning. I could not tell you a single one what it was. It was like some sort of multivitamin. Then I had this pre-workout, and I was just doing it because like, that's what you did. You just, you listen to your GNC guy. And I remember my dad was like, why? He's like, you don't need any of this stuff. And in my head, I was thinking, he just doesn't understand. I'm trying to get big and do all these things. I'm trying to be healthy. Meanwhile, I'm still eating Cinnamon Toast Crunch for breakfast. But my point in saying all this is, there was almost like, it was kind of the Wild West in 2013 or 2014 with regards to supplements. I feel like there wasn't as much standardization. And also people like my dad, and this is kind of like what you were saying, like with your parents, don't really see all of the benefit. It's just more of like a time or a money waster for them. And another example I'll give is my dad and I were doing some yard work one day. And we were going to be doing it for a long time, like swinging this sort of scythe-like thing, clearing trails like for hours at a time. And you're sweating a lot. And so I brought some liquid IV and I gave one to him. And I was like, hey, like this will be good for us to drink either while we're working or after. And maybe a few weeks later, I came back and I saw the same thing that I gave him just in the cupboard. And I was like, hey, I got this for you to have after you do like a hard day's work, which I know you do. And I know because you were just complaining about, oh man, I was doing labor for hours. I was so thirsty after. I'm like, this will help. This will help you retain water. There's other vitamins in there. It'll help some of your other processes run a little bit more smooth. I'm not saying you'll feel it. You might feel more hydrated, but you can sort of rest easy knowing that there are processes in your body that are running a little bit smoother. It kind of relaxes your mind a little bit. And he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that. But, and my dad loves reading Nat Geo and science. He still gets magazine subscriptions. Like he's a smart dude and is really into it. But I think that is a largely untapped market outside of maybe like protein powder and the occasional creatine or something.
Yeah. Like, and they're probably looking at Ensure, but just, even my dad, I got him a thing of electrolytes. It's Relight, if you ever heard of it. It's just like a cheaper version of Element.
Yep.
And I got him like a little tub before I left, and I was like, drink this every day. And he's like, I don't want it. I'm like, Dad, just drink it every day, right? And so he went
it's so
through
hard.
it, and he hits me up, and he's like, yo, like, is there like a different one I can get that's like cheaper? And I'm like, Dad, like, I'm like pound for pound, this is the best and cheapest thing you're gonna get,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, and he's like, all right, I just wanted to make sure. I'm like, I just buy it, and thank you for
Just buy it.
drinking
Just
all of it. Right?
yes. Right, right.
Like, thank you for,
Right.
I like ask him like, Dad, did you drink your salts today? He's like, oh, I got it right here. I can't
Yeah.
get him to do the greens powder though. That one I haven't figured out.
Gotcha. Yeah, my father-in-law, he's got his AG1. I don't know if he still does it, but he'd gotten some bulk AG1 for a while. I was like, okay, nice, nice. I'm here for that. I like my Jocko greens because they have a peach flavored one and it
I was
tastes
gonna say,
really good.
what's your current stack that you've dwindled down to?
I take my Jocko greens peach flavor. I have an omega-3 fatty acid, just pill supplement, D and magnesium, and then I think that's what I have every day. And then depending on what I'm doing, that fresh time right by work, you can buy individual hydration sticks and that sort of thing. And so I might venture on over there. But I think that's really it. Just omegas, magnesium, D, and my greens powder, and then I do caffeine.
Do you do any protein powder?
Oh yeah, I do protein powder.
So,
But
I mean,
I've just been getting the Aldi brand. I've been
okay.
shopping at Aldi recently, and just been cutting back. Baby shit's expensive, so.
Oh yeah, dude, trust me. I'm like thinking. I was thinking the other day. I was like, yeah, if I ever had a kid, like right now, I was like, I got some real like shit I'd have to cut out of my life to be able to afford that kid. You know, because I
Dude,
totally can, but it's like, yeah, like there's just a lot of things where I'm like, I got the money. Let me just buy that extra thing. You know?
100%. Well, and the thing is like I know what products are good for the most part, and I know the benefit I'm gonna get. So for a while, even after June was born, I was still getting specific protein powder. I was getting my Jocko Goes. I was getting the greens. I was getting. There's a handful of things I was still getting because it was so easy to rationalize. Like, well, I work out and I know about these things and I know the positive effect they're going to have on me. So I'm just going to keep doing them. But after a few months, I was like, okay, I think you're going to have to just go without for a little bit. This isn't a priority. And the good thing is you know how to eat well. Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
still um, you know, several levels above the average person in terms of taking care of yourself. Even if you don't get to scratch that itch of really, really buying those things and being able to do that. It's just
Has I don't know how to describe it, but has like flavored clear protein made its way to the US yet?
that's a great question. So I saw in the fresh time market, there was a brand, and I can't remember the brand right now, but I couldn't believe it because it was clear and I
And
think it had
it's
20.
like it's like whey isolate, but it's like watermelon flavor, right?
Yeah, and it's like 20 grams, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a handful of other things in there. And it almost looked like a tall boy water bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that for the first time 2 days ago. Um, so I guess, but I haven't heard about it. I've seen no marketing, no
It's
targeted ads
like
coming my way.
kind of a thing here. I want to say it's big. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's probably starting to be big here, and I've tried a few. And it's I think it's something that makes protein powder more accessible to the average person in the sense that so in Singapore there's a brand called 100 plus and it's just Gatorade, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean it's not Gatorade, but you know, for our purposes it's just
Mm-hmm.
Gatorade, right? And they have like 100 plus go, which is it has 10 grams of protein and it's the like clear whey protein isolate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't tell you it was, you'd be like, okay, it has like a thicker consistency than Gatorade, but it's
Mm-hmm.
nowhere close to a protein shake, right?
Okay.
It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like you're like drinking this like mildly thicker Gatorade. And it
Okay,
like, I've
sure.
had like a watermelon one that my friend has, and it's kind of like I feel like I almost feel like it's weird because I know it's protein. Or if you
Uh-huh.
didn't
Okay.
tell me, I would just be like, yeah, it tastes pretty good.
Yeah, this is a little thick.
Yeah. So I definitely think there's also like, kind of to bring together the supplement and like idea
Yeah.
thing is like, I think that's something that probably gets, older people and people who um, don't eat enough protein because, we now know eating your body weight in grams of protein a day is like a pretty surefire thing, help you maintain lean muscle mass and
Yeah,
like improve,
100%.
all car or reduce all cause mortalities.
Yep.
And something like that isn't like a chalky protein shake that has to be kind of vanilla or chocolate, can be all these different flavors and consumed in different ways. Kind of really improves the market and people's ability to get that through an alternative means
Oh,
without
I
having to
agree.
feel like a bodybuilder, like, oh, that's for bodybuilders, I don't need that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and even someone like my wife, like she, especially post, I mean, I was trying to help her out during pregnancy, but especially post pregnancy. She was asking me like, "Hey, I would like your help with nutrition, just to make sure, like the baby's getting everything that she needs from me, and also, like my wife lost her baby weight pretty quickly, and then was actually concerned about losing too much, and so I was like,
Mm-hmm.
because I've always tried to kind of help, but
Mm-hmm.
she's does her own
Yep.
thing, and so when she came to me, I was like, blessings. But she struggles with the protein shakes, and that can be frustrating for me because I love protein powder. I like the chalkiness. I like the chocolate. I mean, I'm not a huge vanilla guy. I like straw. I mean, I love it. I've always loved it. I like making protein shakes to this day. I hopefully will always love it. Um, but I think for someone not like me, that watermelon flavor that has 10 to 20 grams is a sneaky way to do it. And just from a brand perspective, it's like, oh yeah, I'm just drinking my fruity watermelon drink. I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm just someone who is health conscious and trendy. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yep.
Um, I think that'll be huge. It took me a while to kind of come around on that because just drink the protein shake, it'll be good. And they would just like sit there. She'd either get like the cartons, or every once in a
Yeah.
while she'd make one. She'd be like, can you finish this for me? I'm like, what? Like,
Like that's
how
not how
can
this works.
I say?
Like,
Yeah, I'm like, I'll gladly finish it for you, but uh, that is for you. Um, yeah, I mean, again, sometimes I forget that I'm the target audience for this sort of stuff in terms of like
mm-hmm.
the supplements and the protein powders, just because I love it and am interested in it. And so when people aren't, and they're like, oh, but I don't want to drink that stuff, I'm like, but why? It's so easy. But I think there is that association in people's minds with
Yeah.
just being a huge bodybuilder, whereas like I love that association.
Well,
you
I
know?
had actually done like a bunch of research into like the women's health market
hmm
year and a half ago for a different product that I was potentially going to do and might still do in the future.
hmm
And the like addressable market for women's health is so big because it was never really paid attention to up until recently.
hmm
And so pretty much all kind of supplements and a lot of the research are all focused around men.
hmm
And so, until, probably really like 2015, women's health, like in its specific needs, were not
hmm
paid attention to at all. So it's like,
Yeah.
just a few anecdotes where like almost all energy drinks are marketed towards men and they're seen as juvenile, so women don't approach them, right?
hmm
And that's exactly how it was until Celsius came out,
Celsius. Yep.
because Celsius was, perceived to be healthy and like
hmm
0 calorie and stuff, when in all actuality, it's really, it's not that good for you either.
hmm
Um, but so I think, with the example of the protein thing, it's like, well, if you can make something that's more, for their taste and geared towards them, that's a better product for them because then they'll use it and that improves their health.
Yeah.
And that it was, I forget what it was, but it was like globally the, health and, supplement market for women was projected to be substantially bigger than it is now compared to, the addressable market for men, simply
Hmm.
because they don't have, any of the, you know, kind of specialized products, right? You go to GNC, right? You'll see a ton of testosterone booster stuff, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like, like obviously women are not going to take that, especially how it's marketed. But it's
Right.
like,
Right.
what's the woman equivalent for that, right? That isn't birth control, right? And I've done the
Hmm.
research. There is stuff, but it's just like very not popular. It's not like well
Hmm.
understood, or like even a lot of it's not well researched.
Hmm.
So it's like we're not currently doing anything in that space, but I think like if somebody's listening to this and wants to start a company, especially if they're a woman, like
Hmm.
that space is hot and has a lot of room for potential. And there are brands out there, but there's a lot of room for disruption.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think as a population, we are in need of some help and the health factor just with general obesity rates. I mean, I'm talking here in America, obviously, but
I don't know, dude. Apparently GLP-1s are making everyone skinny.
right. Yeah. Oh, that's been a crazy thing the past year. Oh my God.
I don't want to derail you too much, but what's
No,
your
no, no. This is
opinion
fine.
on that? Because I recently changed my view on it.
Okay, so I think it's nuanced and it's very circumstantial. So if you are at extremely high risk for heart disease, type 2 diabetes, any sort of ailment, 100 pounds overweight plus, and you have had issues for a long time with holding on to some sort of modified diet or exercise or whatever, and your life is in jeopardy, then by all means, you should probably take that because it works. And it works well, especially if it's going to mean more livable, usable years where you can do more things because you're not limited by the extra 100 pounds you're carrying around. That being said, it has been shown that if you don't exercise, both muscle mass drops with your weight that's dropping and bone density goes down
Yeah.
as well. Exercise can sort of negate these effects, but if you're not exercising and you're taking these, then there's some other health problems that could come your way, that might not be immediately as life threatening as having 100 extra lbs, but that can cause problem in the future. I mean, if you're more brittle because you have less bones, or less bone density, and you also are less stable, especially if you're older, if you have less dense bones and you have less muscle mass, especially in your glutes, the fall potential increases greatly. So I think if you're older and overweight and you're on it and you're not exercising, your fall potential is going up, and your increased risk of injury from falling is going up, and your
Hmm.
likelihood to fall is going up if you're losing muscle mass, especially in the glutes. Um, I think so. You remember that podcast I sent you where they were talking about the enhanced games, and everyone's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. I love that
"Yeah,
episode.
yeah, yeah, that was great." Well, that the guy said something on there. One of the guys, because he's on Ozempic.
Yep.
He was on Ozempic, and he was like, "Yeah, it's offloading discipline."
Yep.
And
Outsourced
that,
discipline.
yes, that is untrue. That's a false claim, in the sense that you're not offload. What do you say, outsourcing discipline? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is that what he said? You can't. That's there's no outsourcing discipline unless you're taking like Adderall or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Or some sort of amphetamine. Like I think if you're using it in place of discipline and you're looking to become more disciplined, like, oh, I'm just going to lose the weight and then I'll be able to go to the gym. Now, maybe you lose the weight and you feel better about how you look and you're less worried about people judging you. So you do go to the gym. I mean, like, you can't attach percentages to this, but I'm sure there are some people that is the case for. But if you are an undisciplined person taking something like Ozempic and you're thinking that, oh, this will just fix my discipline problem, well, then I feel like then that's where you also have the problem of, nope, I'm still just undisciplined. I still have bad habits. I'm just not eating as much as I used to. So I don't know. I think it's a tool. I think it's a very useful tool. I think it can help people who are really unhealthy um, take a step back from death's doorstep. And I think that's overall a good thing. But I think in terms of it being a sort of trendy thing to do, I think there's a lot of, namely the loss of bone density and the loss of muscle mass. I think there's a lot of side effects that are undesirable, and I'd be cautious of using it as a shortcut. Now, if there's like a procedure, like a surgery that you're trying to get, and they want you to lose some weight, and the it helps you lose the weight so you can get the surgery, and the surgery is safer, that's another good example. There's a lot of good examples, but I think I'm just a little cautious of how trendy it's become and how many people are on it and maybe not exercising while they're on it, and so they're experiencing these side effects and they probably don't know it. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I agree with most of that. I think what like the issue is that you know pretty much you're eating less, but you're eating
Mhm.
less of a shit diet, right? So
Right.
you're now just getting less protein,
Hmm.
less your micronutrients, which results in that mineral loss in your bones,
Hmm.
right? Because your body kind of strips it away because it needs it from something else.
Yep.
Um, but I actually think like, and this isn't like you didn't say this as specifically, so it's not like necessarily
Hmm.
like against your point, but I
Hmm.
think these will actually just become more popular and more standard.
Hmm.
And like, to your point of, you know, for if you're very overweight pre-surgery, I think
Hmm.
it's just gonna turn into more of what it is now of like, I'm a little pudgy. Let me outsource the discipline. And you are right. It temporarily outsources discipline, right? Because you're not the moment you stop it, most people go back. And that's the issue.
Right.
And I think there is a bit of a vanity point. People like you and I, we
Hmm.
kind of have vested interests in our body, right? We're in better shape than the average people,
Yeah.
and I think it was Naval Ravikant said
Hmm.
like having uh, it was like a happy home, like an in shape body, and peace of mind are all things that money can't buy. They have to be
Hmm.
earned, and
Hmm.
now we're seeing that an in shape body is something that money can buy, right?
Hmm.
If you can afford a Zempic, then you can kind of get that. And I
Hmm.
think there's like a
At
bit
least
of a
visually speaking.
yeah, yeah, visually
Yeah.
speaking,
Yeah.
right?
Visually speaking.
Of course, you're
Yes.
not going to take Ozempic and you're not going to get jacked, right?
Right.
Like, but it's like you'll at least appear healthier from like
Hmm.
less body fat.
Hmm.
And I think there's going to be like a stigma that will like there is a stigma kind of a little
Yeah.
bit of that, and that's going
Hmm.
to get dropped eventually to where probably not people like us because like I don't know, I don't need if I'm any skinnier like I'm going to be like really skinny. I don't need that.
Right. Right. That
But
is not the
it's be
problem I have.
like yeah, the guy who's like wants to lose just 20 pounds is probably going to do it, opposed to the guy who really needs it and loses 100. And I think Mike
Right.
Israetel did had a really good like example of like people feel like, oh, like it's cheating, and it's like,
Hmm.
well, yeah, like using air conditioning is kind of cheating to sleep when we used to sleep outside, but now everybody does it, right?
Mm.
So it's kind of
Hmm.
ridiculous to like reject the progression of like technology. Um,
Sure.
And so, I think these drugs will just get better, and
I hope so. Yeah.
hopefully people like just eat a little better of the little they eat, and it'll all work.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so. I think my main concern is that, like you said, the diet stays the same. It's just less because you actually just don't even want to eat. That desire is like robbed from you. And
Hmm.
so you're eating less, but of still shitty food. And the, because like, the way our food is like sort of produced, with just all the additives and that sort of thing, cancer causing agents and whatever, just like the seed oils, all that. The market won't change because people are losing weight still eating the same stuff. So I think I would just worried that we're still going to have all the same ultra processed foods, and that will just never go away because people are just eating less of it. And so
Yeah.
everyone's still going to have like unhealthy diets where they're malnourished technically because they're micronutrient deficient. And so I guess population wise, everyone could be of weight, but still just addicted to poison food. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. That's just like a long term thing. I heard Dr. Mike Israetel say something. He had an interesting take on Ozempic, where he was talking about, it was probably in the same clip or an adjacent
Hmm.
clip, but it was something along the lines of, if you're not having success, just take it, and then you'll have more time to spend with your family, going to your kids' sporting events, that sort of thing, because you're not going to be going to drive through 3 times a day. Um, which I mean, I think that's a funny. Maybe he was saying it tongue in cheek because he says a lot of
Hmm.
stuff tongue in cheek. Um, but I just don't think that's what people do. I don't think people are missing events like their kids' sporting events because like they're too fat to go. Um, I think I just thought that was an odd example where it's like you'll be more present in your family life. It's like, will you? Because you're still not changing any of your other habits. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're an absentee person, like just because you're less fat doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna all of a sudden start being there for your family. You know what I mean? So I didn't really
Yeah,
see the
that's fair.
correlation.
Because I mean, if you're eating that much takeout, right? Like, you probably have like poor attention. You probably got brain fog. You're probably pretty tired. So,
Uh
right,
huh.
even taking a Ozempic, now you're just eating McDonald's twice a day. Like,
Yeah.
those other things aren't going to go away. And people report headaches and brain fog from Ozempic, which is
Hmm.
probably more due to like reduced calorie intake than anything.
Right.
Um, but yeah, but I mean, he also had like a good example of like a kind of the counter of like, if I could give you a pill that would allow you to be jacked without working out and there
Hmm.
was no downside, would you take it? And he's like, yeah, of course you would. Right?
Yeah.
He's like,
Right. Right.
going to
Of
the
course.
gym, he is like, is an utter waste of time. He's like, I would much rather like go do jujitsu for 3 hours than have to worry about going to the gym twice a day. Right?
And well,
Um,
that's a totally fair point. I think that sometimes people like him, because he's clearly a very hard worker. He kind of blew up right after Chris blew up.
mhm.
Um, and now they're kind of bros,
I would
but
say he's blowing up right now. Like
he's
I
yeah,
don't think
it's
anyone
happening.
had ever heard of him until 6 months ago.
He started popping up on my feed on my YouTube this time last year. It was literally this time last year because he was doing like celebrity, like men's health
Yeah,
critique
the
videos.
celebrity breakdown
Yeah,
diet and
yeah,
whatnot.
all that stuff. And now he's just like full steam ahead. But fuck, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, well, people like him who are just like already super hard workers. He was he a professor at a university in the Bronx. Clearly has a great work ethic in the gym. Does practice jujitsu. Does all these podcast tours. Does his videos, like very
Is
obvious.
a bodybuilder that competes
Right,
at least
right. Is a
right now, right?
bodybuilder, and he looks sick, by the way. But sometimes I feel like people like that often say, like, of course you would want to do that because then I could do 6 other things that I'm not currently doing that are in the back of my head. You know what I mean? And so, like, they already have that work ethic. And I think it kind of goes back to that part in the brain we were talking about earlier, where if you're like not doing things that you don't want to do, it's like, obviously I want to go, well, I really don't, but sometimes I want to go get a McGriddle on a Sunday morning, and, you know, and that's okay because I'm good 80-90% of the time with my diet. But if you're not, and you're not constantly pushing yourself and doing things that you don't want to do, then even if you can take a pill and lose the weight and then take the other pill and get jacked, well, it's like, sweet, now you've got the superhero body, but you're still not doing shit. Like, your life still sucks.
You're still playing video games, eating shit
in your parents'
food,
basement. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think, like, you might look better, but I feel like that's just like when it creeps into the vanity. Like, obviously I like looking good, but I like being able to do stuff. And, you know, my journey the past 5 years hasn't been to look better. I mean, I looked pretty good in college, but has been to get better up here, to strengthen that part of my brain, to get smarter, to get better, to perform, and then now to provide for my family. And I've got goals just like you've got goals. And there's like you do yoga every day, or you practice jujitsu every day, or you go to the gym every day to do the thing. Like, progress will happen, go through plateaus, and then you'll drop, and, but it's all about the journey and the consistency and showing up for yourself. And so if you're not disciplined and you're just, and I'm not talking about Ozempic anymore, because there are obvious reasons why you should take that. But in the hypothetical pill scenario for getting jacked, like, yeah, now you're jacked and maybe you're a little bit stronger, and that's good. And maybe for some people, they now have the confidence to go do other things, and pursue other endeavors. But if you're not disciplined and you don't have any drive, then now you're just a jacked loser.
It's kind of, it makes me think of the Hormozy quote, like, I don't remember what it is exactly, but it's like, you don't become who you say you are by like shouting affirmations in the mirror. You do it by like, showing up and doing the work every day. Right. So it's like, those pills almost in a way become shouting affirmations without the work behind it. Right. So it's like, yeah, you're skinny now, but all the hard work building and discipline building and, habit building that would normally come with losing weight, well, like, you took the shortcut. So it's like, because you took the shortcut, do you actually have what it takes to, keep that physique with the lifestyle requirements? Or are you just going to fall back where you were before because you didn't do the hard work?
Yeah. And like, on the Ozempic train, like, if you want to take it, and like, by all means do it. Like, that is like totally your choice. And again, there's many reasons why you could take
really
it.
Healthy, and probably take a lot of supplements to make sure you're getting it all in.
Right.
And hit your protein macros, and let everything else slide.
Yeah, 100%. There's plenty of reasons to take it, and there's plenty of ways to do it safely. I would just be cautious from a reliance standpoint. That would be my word of caution to anyone who's listening. And again, you should. But if you decide to take it, like, stand by your decision. Like, I'm not, like, no judgment, no stigma. Like, if you need to take it, like, hey, do it. That doesn't make you any less of a person. You got to do what you got to do, right?
might be the first step to the next big thing for you, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes buying the Apple Watch before you start running is the thing that gets you to start running, and then you're running a half marathon, right? Whatever gets you where you need to be.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you know, as much as I and you know we have been talking about discipline, like I'm not perfectly disciplined. Yeah, I still do things that I shouldn't and procrastinate things that I shouldn't, and um, you know, it's just all a journey. And sometimes I buy stuff um that I shouldn't. Do I really need to buy that monster the other day? It's like, no, probably not. But I really wanted it, and I lost out to my needs in the moment, and you know that's okay. That happened, and you know, what are you gonna do about it? Um, Hoppy, I got about 15 here. Was there anything you wanted to talk about just with regards to your business or anything you're reading right now, pursuing? How do you want to close up here the last few minutes?
Sure. We can talk about something I'm reading that you'll be interested in.
Yeah, let's
Have
go.
you ever looked into Tom Brady's TB12 method?
No.
Okay, so I can send you the book later if you remind me. But
Mm-hmm.
so he has like, I don't know if this was after he retired or close to when he was retiring. He pretty much wrote a book with this guy who was like, I don't know, his trainer, kind of
Mm-hmm.
fitness coach guy,
Mm-hmm.
um, that breaks down his entire process of how he was able to be like the top quarterback, win like 7 Super Bowls, and like
Mm-hmm.
play in the NFL till he was like 42 or
Mm-hmm.
something, which is like
Mm-hmm.
insane, right? Because the average
Sure.
career is like 5 years or less.
Uh-huh.
Um, and his like big secret is something he calls plyometrics, which I don't think is a
Mm-hmm.
very good description of what it is, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
essentially like, yeah, like you think of plyometrics as like, you know, kind of like body weight, like jumping around,
Jumping
like
around,
lateral
yeah.
movement, like I don't know,
Uh-huh.
kind of
Explosive a little
stuff.
bit.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but for him it's entirely of like training your muscles, ligaments, and tendons to be pliable. And a lot of it
Mm.
is more or less kind of like these active massages on those, like, you know, your like elbow, or like in your like kind of ankle, like your Achilles, like where there's
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of stuff going on of like
Mm-hmm.
really kind of lengthening the like tendons, so that like
Okay.
when, you know, impact could happen, you know, it could also, you know, be you walking down the stairs,
Mm-hmm.
they're nice and long to be able to absorb it. um
Cool.
and you know, he never lifted weights after his first 7 years in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He only does like banded exercises.
Oh.
Like he's like, why would I bench press? He's like, what does that have to do with me throwing a football?
Yeah, fair enough. Just
Yeah,
specify. Yeah.
and so it's just like really interesting for like to learn about his alternative approach.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like I don't have any major like actionable takeaway for like any of the listeners, but one of the
Mm-hmm.
because you know, like you and I and most people can't afford to have like a TB12 certified masseuse like work on us
Right.
twice a day.
Right,
But
right.
it says in the book that having a vibrating foam roller or vibrating like massage ball
Mm-hmm.
um, can increase your muscle pliability by up to 40% compared to a
Oh, yeah, that's considerable.
um, you know, like, you know, not massage, but foam roller.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Okay,
those
gotcha.
are the kind of the two products that people can use. And coincidentally, I have, and I gotta be honest, I kind of hate this product. This is the Therabody massage ball.
Yeah, I've seen them. Uh-huh.
Um, for the people listening, if you're thinking about buying one, just pay more money and get the one from Hyper Rice. It doesn't have this big flat part that you can like change when you're laying on it. There's as much more recessed in the ball, so it's like people said that this didn't cause an issue. It sucks. I wish I could get my I
It's
wish
an
I could get
issue.
my I wish I could get my money back, but that's besides the point.
Oh,
Um,
dang.
but like, so I've been using that, you know, I've had like my hamstring issue and I've been using it on like my gluten hamstring. And I'll say I have and this was before I read the book, I just coincidentally bought it.
Oh,
um
sick.
I have noticed an improvement in those areas that is
Nice.
not the same after I get like a real massage done, you know, by like a sports masseuse, but
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty damn good for me being by myself.
Right. Okay, I follow. Nice. That's awesome. Wow, how did you hear about that book?
Someone I heard someone talk about it and I kind of looked it up and I was like, ah, okay, whatever, that's cool. Like, most stuff online is like him about how he's like, kind of like 80% vegan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And just like some other weird stuff. And then when I got the autoimmune condition, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm gonna throw that book in the roster because maybe there's something in there, right, that I can like
Mm-hmm.
take away from. Um, and so it's been an interesting kind of read because it's maybe a little contradictory to what most people would think of as like health and fitness, and definitely when it comes to like a professional athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. I think that's pretty cool. I've been reading, well, I just started this book called The March on Washington, and
Okay.
it's about the March on Washington that ended with Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. It was a book. I didn't buy it. I think when I moved out from my house at OU, one of my roommates gave me some books
Mm,
and they've just been on my bookshelf unread. I have like an unread section.
yeah.
And I was just looking for something a little bit different. And it's actually, I'm probably only maybe like 10 pages in, but it's been pretty informative in the sense where basically the premise is it's trying to show you about the grassroots movement that was civil rights leading up to the March on Washington and just the different organizers and stuff, and how there was actually a lot of people with different opinions on how they should execute. I mean, it just really provides a lens on how much more complicated it is. And when you're reading it, you're like, oh, I guess that makes sense that not everybody agreed with everything. And there are
Hmm.
these different factions, but they were able to unite under a handful of different principles. And then they could debate about the rest as they sort of went. And that Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech was the end of like an all day event where there was music and other speakers, some of who were a little bit more aggressive in their calls to action and that sort of thing. But they purposely put Martin Luther King at the end to kind of tie a bow on the whole event
Mm.
with his I Have a Dream speech. And then literally everything else was forgotten and in history, and we only talk about the I Have a Dream speech. And so I'm only 10 pages in. I'm like, oh, cool. I knew absolutely none of this. And so it's not really like any sort of functional takeaways, except for maybe just like, you know, in big movements, sometimes you forget that there are smaller factions that often disagree, and there are a handful of concepts that unify. And so that was kind of cool to remember just from a
I think it
organizational
would
standpoint.
be pretty interesting for you to read that book and then
Mm-hmm.
use something like Perplexity or Chat GPT and
Mm-hmm.
see if you can find like what the newspapers kind of wrote about that event back then to
Oh,
see like because
yeah.
obviously like that entire movement is about like kind of bringing an end to like racism and segregation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
like definitely white people were running the newspapers, and
Sure.
I
Yeah.
wonder if and now looking back on history or like this was a great thing, which it was obviously, right?
Sure.
And we celebrate it, um, but I wonder if back then, just because of the distrust with media now and the obvious painting of stuff, it's so much more in
Mm.
our face. Where back then, you had like what, like three newspapers and like three news channels. If they
Sure.
painted it as like this kind of like bad thing, there was misinformation around it. So it'd just be interesting to see like
Yeah, that's a
here's
good
a
point.
book that all things considered is probably pretty factual of what actually happened, right,
Mm-hmm.
and is like a much more accurate representation of history, but then using that tool of like, okay, well, what did the newspaper actually say back then? Because I guarantee you it
Right.
wasn't like people showed up to march on Washington to end segregation and it was great and now we're going to end it, right?
Yeah, and now it's
It's
done. Yeah.
definitely like not what like the New York Times said.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I would definitely interested to see what they said. And it's cool that you brought up the newspaper thing because in the first chapter, they're basically talking about this guy. something Randolph, but he had his own, he was a black dude and he had his own newspaper somewhere in New York. I can't remember which borough, but um, and combined with his ideas of, ending racism and ending segregation, there is also like a heavy socialist lens as well. And so that in his newspaper. And so he often had trouble even with other black folks who were like, I agree with the end of segregation and racism, but I'm not, I don't want to be a socialist, and so there's like some messaging that he struggled with, and then he eventually found like some traction with this like railroad union that was able to launch him into more prominence, because he had their back and that sort of thing. And so I don't know, all pretty interesting, but it's just kind of, if I have time in the mornings, that's my morning book. That's my productivity rain dance before the day.
Yeah, how is now having a kid, obviously you're married,
Mhm.
like, your productivity to, do things that aren't, the core essentials. Because, for myself, it's like I can get up, I can do my breath work, I can work out, I can eat, I can go to WeWork for however long I want, come home, hang out in the hot tub, read for a bit,
Mhm.
and go to bed. Right? I essentially have like no responsibilities,
Mhm.
other than when my like girlfriend is in town. But even then, it's
Mhm.
still like pretty
You can do all
flexible.
those things
Where
with her, yeah.
yeah, pretty much, right? And but
Uh-huh.
I imagine for you, it's like you say like, oh, if I have time in the morning, it's like, oh, it's got to be pretty tough to like get in time to like be able to read and like do you just re-upped one of your certs, like studying for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good question. So there's two obstacles to doing maybe some of the other things that I like to do, but maybe aren't necessary in providing. One is obviously spending time with the kid, and it's not that, obviously that's not an obstacle. That is often the highlight of my day, is getting to play with June, especially since she's crawling and she actually is able to take about 2 or 3 steps unassisted, not holding on to anything, before she falls
Huh.
into one of our laps. So like, it has just been the best of times here. But that does take time. Like, she can't do anything in terms of take care of herself yet. So um, that's very time consuming. And then the other, this is the main obstacle, is 2 times a week I got to get up at 3:45 to go to Orange Theory, and that, combined with childcare and having to get up earlier to do workouts, means that if I want, and I've got my Whoop and I try and maximize my HRV as much as possible, and you need sleep to do that. And so on days when I can sleep until 7, I try to. But if it's a day where I need to get up earlier to work out, I still want to maximize my sleep. So I basically, if I want to leave at 6:45 to be to the gym at 7, I'll wake up at 6:15. I'll only give myself a half hour, and I'll basically just brew coffee, and maybe I'll read for 15 minutes or so, grab my coffee, and you know, read an extra 5, or I'll watch like some YouTube videos. Um, and that's that. So there is room for sure to sort of tighten up the productivity in the morning, or fit in some of those things that
Hmm.
are maybe more challenging. It's just willpower, man. I mean, it's literally just because there is so little time. It's like, well, do I want to read this book, which is leisurely, or do I want to just like kind of scroll YouTube and watch a video that catch my interest? And in my head, because I'm an idiot, it turns into like a moral debate. I'm like, well, reading is better for you, and then I'm just like
Yeah.
stressing myself out about the 30 minutes before I work out for no reason. It's just like, hey, you know what? Just pick one. Like, you're if you feel like reading, then do it. And so what I've done is I put my book out so I see it. I'm just like, just pick it up and start. And once I start, I am having a good time like a normal person reading a book, but when I wake up, I'm like, ooh, the blue light from YouTube on my TV will really help me wake up when I have my coffee. And so, I mean, yeah, that's really it as far as like the that's the only real time. Cause like during the day, I still prioritize working out, and my wife is really good about, hey, it's okay if you make fitness part of your priority because you are in that sort of line of work, and she knows I'm starting to pick up trying to build endurance for the pump and run down the road in March, and so she's all supportive with that. But any sort of like accessory thing like reading or meditation or whatever it is I want to do, that's on me to find time for in the morning, or like on Wednesdays and Tuesdays I watch June while Tay's at yoga. And so if she's napping or I've put her to bed, it's like, do you relax and just kind of watch TV? Because on Wednesdays, usually by the time I'm doing childcare, I've been up since 3:45 and now it's 6 p.m. and I'm like, or 7 p.m. I'm like, well, should I read and meditate, or am I just like, have I earned the ability to just veg out and do nothing? And so that's kind of where I'm at, is just trying to figure out, balance of sleep and childcare versus have I earned the ability to chill out, or should I do the little bit of extra work that'll set me apart? And so it's really more of like an ethical, moral battle in my brain of, well, could you have done more despite being up that early? Could you have done this? Like, are you setting a good example, for your kid?
Why don't you just create like some split so you're like not guilty? You got like 7 mornings in a week, right? Like 4 of them you can read, 3 of them you can go on YouTube.
Sure. Yeah.
Or something like that.
100%. I think I'm bad at pivoting priorities, like, and so it's a skill set that I'm trying to work on getting better at. Is I'll like get an idea in my mind, I'm like, this is the way it has to be because I'm a super disciplined person. And then I'm just like torturing myself for no reason. It's like, well, you're torturing yourself so much that you're actually doing the thing less than if you just did a split like that. And so just getting better at shifting priorities. It's like, well, you said this would work, but it's not. And even if you think this is what you should do, it's objectively not working. So maybe you should just pivot and do the thing at least twice a week. And then you can build from there. Or maybe twice a week is all you get, and it's better than, 0 or 1 time a week. Yeah. So yeah, long-winded answer to your question. Sometimes I get to do the things, sometimes I don't. It varies week by week. And Tay's also been really good about accommodating me for the podcast as well, since it is kind of just more of a hobby right now, but I am trying to grow the Instagram channel, trying to get viewership up and use it as a tool to hopefully promote myself come March, and maybe promote the training program I use basically the last 12 weeks. That's my plan, is package the program that I did the final 12 weeks as like Jake's hybrid program for the pump and run, and just sell that to, like, if you want to do exactly what I did for this niche thing, here's the ebook for it, and kind of use it that way. And that will scratch the itch of some sort of semblance of Fowler-Fit existing out there, and then I can build on that in the future. But
hey man, that's how it starts, and it sounds like you have found a good partner to support you while you're pursuing all of it.
Yes, I'm very lucky. Yeah, she's been great, and we've been doing
a good... you broke up with her for one day once?
1 week.
Oh, it was a week? I thought it was
yeah. No, it was a week, and actually she was like, are you going to break up with me when school starts? And I was like, yeah. She's like, all right, well then I'm breaking up with you now. And I was like, shit, that makes sense. And then I was like, bro, you're dumb. You're a dumb person. And then here we are, happily married with a kid. So it all worked out.
There you go, man.
Well, Hoppy, I think I gotta wrap this up here so I can get home to do dad stuff because it is Tuesday, and Tay will have yoga. But super excited for you and everything that you've been doing. Is there any sort of plug that you want to put out? Do you want people to visit your website? Is there an Instagram? Like, where can people kind of keep tabs on what is going on with you on the business side of things, or even just in general?
Yeah, so website is liveessential.co with just one E. You can go to our website, take a look, sign up for our newsletter, which will be starting soon, to, get any updates on product. You can find all of our social medias at the bottom of the website. If you want to follow me, my Instagram is hi_Hopwood, like HI, but I don't really use Instagram very much, so you're not gonna see a whole lot there, except to send Jake memes once a week.
Yeah, those have been fun. I've been enjoying those.
I only use Instagram for like 30 minutes on Saturday or Sunday. That's really
good for you.
I try to. I just feel better not being on it as much.
100%. 100%.
So once you get that habit, for me, it's pretty easy to just like download it, go on for 30 minutes, and then delete it for the week.
That's what you do.
Yeah, it's like on my phone right now, the app is fully deleted, so I have to re-download it when I want to use it. Log in, I'll look, and then when I have the timer set, right? So it says your screen time is up, and then maybe if I'm like I'm not done, I haven't got my fill, I'll do 15 more minutes.
Gotcha.
And then when it comes up again, I'll just delete it off my phone, and then I don't go on again until that next Saturday or Sunday, just depending on. And sometimes I miss it, right? I'm just busy doing real life shit, and I guess it goes 2 weeks or so.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So I hope to sponsor your pump and run.
Dude, I would love that. I will do. Look, if you ever any sort of if you ever want to use me for any sort of Instagram or product sort of thing, I'm all in, man. I really want to see you succeed, and I also think
unless we, for some absurd reason, don't have product by then, I don't see why it would happen. But we've had enough hiccups where I'm just like, I don't want to make any promises yet, but definitely look forward to seeing how you do that, and maybe not next year, but at least sometime in the future doing High Rocks.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, for sure. Well, again, if there's anything I can do to help support, obviously, let me know. And we'll go ahead and stop recording. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This one will be out. Well, who cares? We'll see you on the next one, folks. Later.